Hi, my name is Drew Pemberton, and today I'm going to teach you how to use a burette. The first thing we'll need to do once we obtain our burette is to rinse out the inside of the burette. You'll want to do this with whatever substance you'll be placing inside the burette. Normally it's either acid or a base, so whatever you're using at the time. We do this by placing a funnel in the top of the burette. Makes it easier to put the substance into the burette. Pour in a little bit, not very much. Then what we'll do is we'll tilt this and pour some out. And we tilt it and rotate it such that the liquid will coat the entire inside surface of the burette. This will prevent any contamination from previous experiments. Now we're ready to pour in our substance into the burette. Before we do that though, notice the position of the stopcock. It is in the horizontal position. That means it's closed. If it's vertical, it's open. And you don't want it open while you're filling up your substance. Otherwise, everything's going to just start pouring out. So make sure it's closed before you start filling it up. What we want to do is, just like before, put a funnel at the top of it and pour it in slowly and carefully. You'll notice at the top that some liquid is still in the funnel as you're pouring it. So make sure the water level, or the level of the substance, doesn't get too high up to the top before you stop pouring it in, because you'll have a little bit more liquid go into it that's still in the funnel. Important thing to note here, you don't have to fill it up all the way to the top. In fact, make sure you don't fill it up past the markings up at the top. Otherwise, you won't be able to record the starting volume in the burette. One final note. Before you finish filling up the burette, make sure some of the liquid gets into the tip of the burette. So just pour a little bit out. You need to do this, otherwise your initial volume that you measure at the top of the burette will not be accurate for when you do your titration. Now we're ready to start the titration. The first thing we're going to want to do is to record the initial volume of the burette up here at the top. In order to correctly measure the starting volume inside the burette, we want to measure the volume at eye level at the meniscus. The meniscus is the bottom of the bulgish part of the liquid that's inside. So at the bottom of the disc that you see here, we want to measure at that line. You'll notice that the burette is numbered from 0 to 50, starting at 0 at the top. That means when we want to read the initial volume, we'll have to read it from the top. So right now, the current volume is at more than 3, almost 4. And when we record the starting volume, we do it to 2 decimal places. Marked out on here is accurate up to 1 decimal place. The second decimal place we'll have to estimate. So right now, what do you think the volume level is on the meniscus? It looks to me to be about 4.00. And remember, that second decimal place is an estimate, but the first decimal place we do have confidence in. The next thing I'm going to teach you is how to properly dispense liquid from the burette. What you're going to want to do is, with your dominant hand, which happens to be my right, And with your non-dominant hand, which happens to be my left, grab both the flask and the stopcock. The flask in our right hand, we're going to swirl as the liquid dispenses from the burette. And then we're going to control the speed, or the rate at which the liquid comes out of the burette with my left hand. So as you can see, we can do it quickly. We can dispense it slowly, as in dropwise, and all the while we'll be stirring it as the titration occurs. Once you get close to the end point of the titration, you want to go dropwise. Now let's say that the titration is finished. Now we want to know how much volume we dispensed. So let's go ahead and look at the final volume inside the burette. The final volume of the burette looks to be around 24.49. Remember to look at eye level at the burette and look at the meniscus when you're measuring the final volume. And also remember that it's measured 0 at the top, 50 at the bottom. So you're going to measure it looking this way. So 24 and then some, instead of 25 and then some. Once you're finished using the burette for the titration, be sure to remove any liquid that's still in it using the appropriate waste disposal method that your instructor tells you. Then, using DI water, rinse out the burette with the method described as before by tilting the burette and covering all of the sides with DI water while you're pouring it out.